Okay, so since we are at the hour, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Raising the Roof Home Repair Programs webinar. My name is Dr. Moriah Shiddat, and I serve as Program Officer here on the Rural LISC team. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about Rural LISC for those of you who may be joining us for the first time. Rural LISC is the national rural program of LISC. We work alongside a network of more than 200 partners, community-based partners from across the country. We support rural organizations through capacity building, training, technical assistance, peer learning, and strategic investments that help strengthen housing, economic opportunity, and community resilience. One of the most valuable things that we do is create opportunities for partners and practitioners to learn from one another. Today's webinar is a part of that effort, bringing together leaders from the field, as well as our LISC staff here. And today's webinar will share lessons learned, emerging opportunities related to the area of home repair programs. We're very glad you're here and we're excited to get started. So what I will do is just go ahead and advance my screen one moment here. Next slide, sorry. Okay, there we go. So we're excited to bring together leaders from across the country who are working to preserve affordable housing. We have two of our partners and rural list staff. And we want to make sure that today we reserve this call for talking about how home repair programs strengthen communities, help to improve quality of life through preservation efforts. So today's conversation will be it is particularly timing because across rural America, we continue to hear about how things such as aging housing stock, rising home repair costs, and the challenges families face when they need critical repairs is a challenge at this time. And when particularly resources are becoming more scarce. So organizations developing creative solutions and new opportunities to continue to emerge at the local, state, and federal level. So before we begin, let's go back here. I wanted to just briefly highlight what we'll talk about today. We'll touch base on rural housing repair challenges and opportunities, looking at a few program models that work from our partners. We will look at some housing preservation approaches and then have our LISC policy team discuss federal policy and funding updates that impact home repair programs. And if we have time towards the end, we'll answer a few questions from participants. All right. So to frame the conversation, I wanted to just first start out by briefly talking about why home repair programs truly matter. So home repair is about far more than just fixing a roof or replacing a furnace or addressing structural problems. It's about preserving affordable housing, and it's also about helping older adults age safely in place, as well as emerging families. And it's about protecting family assets and generational wealth. It's ensuring that rural communities remain healthy, stable, and resilient. And so for many communities, critical repair can mean the difference between remaining safely housed or facing displacement. Today, we're going to hear from both the practical side of this work and the policy side, giving us a picture of what it takes to preserve housing in rural communities. So just a few housekeeping items. You can use the chat feature to submit any questions or comments that you have during today's webinar. So intro to our panelists. I'm honored to be joined by outstanding leaders. First, we will hear from Amy Bowen, Executive Director of Appalachian Community Action and Development Agency in Southwest Virginia. And then we'll hear from Josh Runhaar, Executive Director of Neighborhood Nonprofit Housing in Utah. We'll then be joined by Damon Thompson, Senior Director of National Housing at LISC, who will share national housing perspective and reflect on some lessons emerging across communities. And finally, we'll hear from Nicole Barcliffe, Senior Director of Policy for for LISC, LISC National, who will provide an update on federal housing legislation and policy development affecting home repair programs. So let's begin with Amy.
Hello. I want to say thank you for having me today. And the first slide that I have, this is a picture of part of our coverage area, and I thought that was really pretty, and I wanted to share that with you guys just to kind of show how much, I guess, in the rural area that we are, that is part of our Wise County portion of our coverage area. That's from looking off an overlook down into the valley in one of the areas that we serve. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Of course, my name is Amy Bowen. I'm a Scott County native. We actually serve Wise, Scott County, in the city of Norton. I'm sure you can tell how rural I am just by my voice. I've had a strong foundation in community action. I actually started out as an intake worker, have worked in the Financial Opportunity Center when we started partnering with LISC, helping people with workforce and all of the other sides of LISC, the income supports and that type of thing. I'm a head housing counselor. I've done some loan packaging. I'm our Roma implementation person for the agency, and I went on last year to become the executive director. And that's just a little bit about me. I've always lived in this rural area. Before that, I worked in healthcare, so I saw kind of a different side of the rural area, but different people. And I've always just been very dedicated to this area, wanting to see the people to forward their thinking, and maybe not just to survive, but to really thrive. And that's one reason that I got into community action. And I shared our mission and our vision. And I just wanted, to share that, to let you have a little background on us as an agency of what we want to do. We want to help people to change and empower them to be strong and self-supporting, and to help them with their challenges. And as you've said, housing is definitely a challenge in our area, as I'm sure it is in all of the areas. A little bit of background on our agency. Of course, I said we're in far Southwest Virginia, serving Wise and Scott County and the city of Norton. We're in the far westernmost tip of Virginia. Of course, it's distinct cultural, geographic, and historical region. Very deeply rooted in farming, raising burley tobacco, and coal mining. Those were the biggest industries in this area for several years, and one of them is completely depleted, and one is almost completely depleted. Now there are some gaps being filled in with some different industries. We actually have a couple of prisons in our area with the prison system that's helped us economically, and some tourism in the last few years has also helped us some, because I think people are starting to realize how different small towns are, and how nice it is to visit those and to enjoy some of the natural resources here and the natural beauty. We've served last year over 7,000 individuals, over 1,300 families. Most of those people were under 125% of the poverty level. We offer weatherization with the housing repairs, and that's how that we help our housing to be preserved. We don't create new housing, but we do preserve the housing in the area, whether that be for homeowners or for renters. We also have whole family wraparound services, free income tax preparation. We have Christmas and eyeglasses programs, had housing counseling with the financial coaching, which also helps with the housing, as far as teaching people how to, how to empower themselves with the tools to be home buyers and how to be good renters and how to, I guess, speak up for themselves if they're not being treated fairly as renters as well. So all of our programs supplement each other to, to help the entire family. We weatherize around 100 homes annually. Around 80% of those need repairs in order to be in a shape that they can be weatherized. We do have a lot of elderly homeowners, multi-generational families. Some of the people have lived on, their family farm. It's been passed down for generations, and then they become older. Their incomes will not maintain those homes, but they do not want to leave them. So with the weatherization and the supplemental programs that we have to do repairs, we're able to do roofs and do floors and get the home in a state that it can be weatherized, which in turn helps them with their utilities so that they can afford to stay in that house. Also, with our counseling programs, we are able to help them with their budget and know, what that may be something that they need to spend money on and something that they could, not spend money on. Of course, as financial coaches, we let the people drive those decisions. Because, if you're making your own decisions, then chances are you're going to stick with those a lot better than us helping you make them. This is just a picture at the end. This is our staff. We're a small staff, around 25 people, and delivering, like I said, a multitude of services. This isn't another part of our coverage area. This is Natural Tunnel State Park, which is in Scott County, and that just shows some of our mountain views and just some of our natural beauty. And I believe the last picture I had was just a picture that Rural LISC shared on Facebook with us some time back, and that shows one of our county seats. And as you can see, small town in an older area. And I shared that because I really like the way that LISC had added that. But that's a little bit about our programs.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for walking us through your presentation and particularly highlighting like the connection between housing conditions and overall, family stability. And this reminds us like housing preservation often requires much more than just single interventions, but it often takes partnerships, services, and long-term commitment. And I liked how you painted a vivid picture of realities facing many rural communities where housing stock is aging and resources are limited. Next, we'll transition from Southwest Virginia to Utah and hear about another model for delivering home repair services with neighborhood nonprofit housing. And Josh, take it away.
Hi, my name is Josh with Neighborhood Nonprofit Housing Corporation. We have a rehab program that we've been running now for about 15 years. Our primary role here is housing developers. So we do a lot of multifamily light tech. We do land development. Up until this year, we did the self-help program with USDA. But we've had to drop that program because of changes to the USDA program. But today we're just going to talk about our rehab programs.
Sorry, one
I think
moment.
we're
I
working on
lost.
slides here for a second.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
And- There we go. Right.
There we go. So we're located in northern Utah in a valley, different types of mountains than Amy's. Ours are much taller but much browner right now because we are in a heat wave and very drought hit right now. So, we operate a program that we call NUNIP, which is the Northern Utah Neighborhood Improvement Program. I didn't come up with the name. I inherited that one, but where we're at right now, we have a 2-year grant cycle right now in 26 and 27 to do 90 units. These are all owner occupied units that we rehab. The subsidy amounts that we have is $25,000 per unit. That money comes with no repayment or deed restriction after 5 years. There are some caveats to the funding source for repayment, but we have never seen one of those come through. So really, it's a $25,000 grant, but the funding source calls it a subsidy. If our projects go beyond the $25,000, the families are required to cover the difference. So far in the last 4 years, we've had 2 overages. One was for $75 or so, and one was for a couple $100, which didn't create too much of a burden for the families to cover. We service 2 counties with this program right now, which is Cache County, where we're at, and Box Elder, which is the rural county to our west. The program has income limits. This is our latest grant limits. So we serve 22% of the households at below 60% AMI, and the rest of the households are between 60 and 80% AMI. What we're finding is on occasion, we're actually on the lower side of that. Our funding source doesn't care if we go lower. We just can't move those 60% and below AMIs up. And we have specific populations we have to serve. So 56% of our clients are elderly, 20% are some level of disability, 20% are veteran. The benefit is we can count households in multiple categories with our funding source. So if we have an elderly disabled veteran, they count into each one of those categories, which is great for us. And then the rest of the units are open and available, just income restricted. Our funds are very, very hard requirement to meet those eligibility criteria. If we're not performing under those performance criteria, they simply won't process funds for us. So we are very careful of making sure we're meeting those allocated populations. Most of what we're doing in this program is replacing and repairing roofs, doing windows, siding. We do concrete work, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and we do a lot of accessibility ADA upgrades. We've done ramps, doorways. A lot of the bathrooms we do are to make sure that people can use them better. What we're really looking for here is sustaining the structure of the home, not doing cosmetic improvements. All of the units we do have to be owner occupied, but it does work for attached units as well. So we've done duplexes. We've not yet done townhomes, and there's some tricks in townhomes. We can't do much exterior work on a townhome because of HOA rules and that, but we can use them as long as, or use the funds as long as it's owner occupied. All the funding comes through Federal Home Loan Bank. 3 other things that we've used this funding for. We've also used this as rehab funds for multifamily properties. So River Park Senior Housing is a building we own. It's 40 units of senior and disabled housing. It's a LIHTC property, so low-income housing tax credits, with about a 42% average AMI in the building. The mechanical systems were literally blowing themselves apart. We had an old boiler system in there with more water leaks than we knew what to do with. We were spending about $45,000 a year simply to repair water leaks. We got a $1 million grant from Federal Home Loan Bank. So they've got an arm that does single family, and then you can do the same thing on multifamily. So we have a $1 million new mechanical system that just finished up about 3-4 months ago. On that property, we do have a 15-year deed restriction because it's multifamily. But again, since it's a LIHTC project, it doesn't really matter. We already have those deed restrictions in place. We've also used Home Start down payment assistance through Federal Home Loan Bank. You can get up to $15,000 in down payment assistance. And we've used their member impact fund, where they will match 3-to-1 a donation from a member bank. So we get banks to donate money to us, and then the Federal Home Loan Bank will triple that donation and then make a donation to us as well. So that's the program. The funding source, Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines. Everybody's in different regions. Everybody probably has a different home loan bank. and all the rules are slightly different, so I can only tell you what Des Moines does. But what Des Moines has is the affordable housing program, where the bank is required under a congressional statute to put 10% of their profits into affordable housing programs. And so that's what we're tapping into for this. Those projects can be up to $3 million per project and or a limit of $150,000 per unit. This can go towards rental or home ownership, just depends on what kind of project you're structuring. For applications, you have to work through a partner bank. So we cannot apply directly to the Federal Home Loan Bank. We go through partner banks that are part of the Federal Home Loan Bank network. It's not that complicated because most banks are part of the network, but it does mean you need a partnership with the bank. They do applications the 1st of May, but then we get to wait basically 7 months until December to find out if we got awarded. And they award all of these things based on point systems. So last year, the points that found funding were between 68 points on the low end and 79 points on the high end. Our new net project scored at 72. So we're kind of in the bottom third, and we're constantly trying to seek additional ways to get points. This year, we had to add a separate veteran service provision. Just to make sure we got enough points to get funded. And I'll show you what the points look like, but you can kind of pre-build your project into a point sheet and see kind of how you're doing. So you're not just guessing at whether or not you're going to have funds coming, and you can kind of craft your project a little bit based on the points they do give. The best part is, as of their more recent cycles, AHP funds now provide a 12% administrative fund. And so for this round of grant, we got $2.25 million in project funds, but we also got $270,000 in admin funds. The problem we had in the past was we would get program funds from the Federal Home Loan Bank, but no admin. And so we had to partner up with cities and banks and donors and other things to make sure that we could actually administer the program. We don't have to worry about that anymore. We can operate the program with admin funds in place. The only thing that we really have to pay attention to when we're using the funds is that we have to pre-qualify all of the applicants. It's not even needing tax returns. We just have to look at pay stubs to qualify people. And we have to understand that all of these funds are reimbursement based. So we have to have sufficient capital to handle front loading the project and then getting a reimbursement after the project is complete. So there is some effort there. This is the scoring sheet, well, part of one of the scoring sheets that they provide. You can see that you can just add up your points. You can look at, how much of your project is going to be, 6% or less AMI. You get points for that. You can look at, serving homeless or veterans, seniors, disabled, Native American, all of those things will provide different levels of points, but you can go through, read all the scoring guidelines, and you can help craft the populations you're going to serve based on the points you need to earn to get the funding. So looking at some of the projects that we've done, I mean, they're very basic improvements, but much needed. You can see this was a duplex we did where we were able to come in and redo all the siding. The siding was basically rotting off the exterior of the house. And so we were able to re-side the whole building. Next slide. Here's a bathroom remodel. So we've got a bathtub that is not in great condition. It was leaking into the basement. We had mold growing, a number of other problems. So we did a whole bathroom remodel in here. Just keep ticking through these. Here's a roof. You can obviously see that the shingles are well past their lifespan. We do a lot of roofs around here. They're very expensive to do. Our housing costs have been increasing dramatically, and so being able to provide roofs for people is a great service. Another bathroom, you can see the amount of mold growth. You can notice that we added a vent in this one so that we can help eliminate future mold growth. We do a lot of concrete work. Most of the concrete work we're doing are for families that have ADA accessibility needs. You can imagine trying to get through broken concrete or even dirt driveways with a wheelchair or crutches is problematic. So a lot of families we do concrete work for have mobility issues. I think there's a couple more. Another bathroom here, installed grab bars and lowered the lips so that people can more accessibly get into the shower. The other programs that we're looking at, we used to run a bunch of smaller state programs they gave us funding for. Unfortunately, the state of Utah hit budget constraints this year, and they eliminated essentially every affordable housing program that we had. And so all of those are filtering away. But we're also in the process of developing a few other rehab programs. We're just kind of in the initial stages of this, but we're looking at doing a senior handyman service. We get a lot of phone calls. People just have really basic needs, fixing a leaking toilet, maybe a couple outlets, aren't working properly, some really basic things. And what we're looking at is how do we allow people to age in place easier? We're trying to figure out how to right size it because we can't really send people out just to change a light bulb. Nor can we, with this program, do major structural repairs. And there's no money for us to do this yet. Our thought process here is we're going to front load money to provide this service, hopefully prove out that there's a good impact. And by showing good impact, we can go back out to donors and funding sources to bring money in. We don't think we're going to put an income requirement on this, it's just a needs test, because it's really difficult to tell a senior that we need to see all of their financial information to see if they qualify for us to come in and fix the toilet. There's a trust level there. So we think that one's just going to be a needs test, and we'll go out and do minor repairs. And then we're looking at what we're trying to call a small repairs program, which is again funded with corporate funds, where we'll do zero interest soft second loans on the house. So basically, we can do the work. We'll put a deed restriction in place that when they sell the house or transfer it, we'll get that money back just dollar for dollar. We're looking at things that range between $2,000 and $8,000. Part of the problem we have with NUNIP is we need enough work to hit a $25,000 threshold to get into that program. But we get a lot of phone calls for, furnace died, or my AC went out, or I have, I need an ADA ramp and it's $4,000 for an ADA ramp. They don't really rise to the level of putting them into our full rehab program, but people still need help there. And so we're looking at how to basically help with the spectrum of everything from fixing a toilet through minor repairs all the way up to major home repairs, and hoping that that'll better serve the communities we're in. But again, we don't have funding for either of these, so we'll take it out of our internal corporate funds, and then we'll be able to hopefully get funding later to fill these. But that's our rehab programs.
Thank you, Josh. I really like those before and after photos because they're examples of how you're really bringing this work to life in terms of home repair programs. And one thing that stands out to me is the intentional way you guys paired funding sources with program design. Before we move on, I'd like participants to briefly reflect on this. If an organization that in our audience wanted to launch or expand a home repair program, what's one lesson you wish you had known in the beginning? Feel free to put your responses in the chat. Thank you, Josh. All right, so next we will hear from our LISC team. First, I will stop sharing this screen particularly, and we will have Damon Thompson. We've heard from two outstanding examples of home repair programs in practice. And Damon is going to provide us with a broader perspective. Damon works with housing initiatives here at LISC across the country and has a unique vantage point on what organizations are experiencing in different markets and regions. Um, Based on what you've heard so far, Damon, we'd love for you to add to the national example and your expertise in the subject. So take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, once again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Damon Thompson, Senior Director on our National Housing Team. Been with LISC now for 11 years. I'm based out of Detroit. Been on the housing team started with the Detroit office for 7 years and then joined the housing team about 4 years ago. So our team really works around our four programmatic pillars, home repair being one, and really kind of like our, as I call it, one of our largest and our oldest. So it's home repair, along with heirs property support, specifically where we have a home repair presence. So with home repair and heirs, I like to call that our twofold solution around housing preservation, not only preserving the property from a repair aspect, but then resolving any title issues that we may find for homeowners, or being proactive and making sure that we are making sure that that owner occupant has an estate plan, they have a will in place. Then we also have our faith-based development work. We have our emerging developer, our developer training work, and then our home ownership opportunities. So home repair being near and dear to my heart, because for the last probably 25 years, I've been in the home repair space. Prior to joining LISC, I worked in the city of Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County for 12 years, leading our home repair efforts. And the theme has not changed. If anything, the numbers have grown. So as we know, just based on conservative estimates are that we have nearly a $149 billion home repair program. How houses are getting older. We also have climate challenges, which are also impacting the integrity of homes. So for LISC in the home repair space, 10 years ago, we started our first home repair loan program in the city of Detroit. And the program was specifically geared toward underserved residents who traditionally were denied for home improvement financing because of credit and collateral. We saw the numbers, we saw the Zillow reports coming out about Detroit, and just about the fact that Detroit was a credit desert in terms of home repair financing. And so since starting that work in Detroit 10 years ago, we've been able to bring that work across 5 markets, 8 programs. So we have Memphis, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Charlotte, that we have a mixture of home repair loan programs and home repair grant programs. So for instance, in Cincinnati, we have a lead safe grant program that we're winding down with ARPA funds, almost $6 million, specifically targeting lead hazard repair. And then we have 2 loan programs. So how our home repair programs work is we secure public funding on a local level, and then us as a housing team works with a local market, and we provide that technical assistance on program build out and implementation. Our sweet spot is that once we have public funds secured, whether it's either CDBG, whether it's ARPA, whether in the case of Cleveland, it's local general funds, we then go out and fundraise the matching capital. So for every dollar I have of public funds, I go out and we raise a dollar of private funds. That way we are able to leverage the loan pool, we are able to serve more residents, and we are able to bring a below market product to bear. In Detroit, it's a 0% product. Memphis is a 3% product. Both the products that we have in Cincinnati are 2% products. And then Cleveland is a hybrid. So Cleveland is a grant program funded through city general funds that is matched with a 0% loan provided by Key Bank. Our funding is a 10-year term. We also know that many of the homeowners that we deal with, because of collateral challenges, are not able to receive homeowners insurance. So the beauty of our program is that we're also able to include an escrow their homeowners insurance. We're also able to escrow their taxes. I know in the majority of the homes that I touch, and I'll just use Detroit as an example, at least 70% of the homes that we've touched were uninsured before they got into our program. And so by having that CDC that we're working with as the face of intake, they're able to help that homeowner secure the insurance. The homeowner doesn't have to worry about making that large down payment. We will carve that out of their contingency. We will fund the escrow, and then they would just pay the escrow as they would normally for a standard mortgage program. Our credit score is a below market product. It's a 560. For those who do not have a credit score, we can use alternative credit. So that does not shut you out. We have standard underwriting ratios, 45% debt to income, 35% on the back end for housing. And then we also do not do a formal appraisal. As we know, many of the underserved communities we work in, there are appraisal challenges, once again, around collateral. So we just use the automated valuation formula, and we just take basically neighborhood comps. So that allows a homeowner to really go up to almost 150% of their home's value. So I've seen people with a mortgage still qualify for one of our loan programs, or someone who has a HELOC. The majority of the folks that we deal with, of course, are free and clear. And then we also are targeting these funds because we have federal funds included. We are serving homeowners up to 80% AMI. We cover the entire spectrum from homeowners at 30% AMI to 31%, all the way up to 80%. So we've been able to, over these last 10 years in the home repair space, be able to create a credit box that was not there in the communities that we served, whether it's an urban community or whether it's a rural community. There are still the same credit challenges walking into a bank trying to get a traditional loan that we know that we are fighting against. In terms of a repair spectrum, of course, the first thing that we're dealing with is health and safety. So we're looking at lead, mold, and asbestos, and then we're incorporating the whole home approach. So we're looking at energy efficiency improvements all the way to full scale improvement. So I have homeowners who get roofs, HVAC, plumbing. I have homeowners who get full electrical, bathroom repairs, kitchen repairs. So we do the entire gamut in terms of our repair work. I think for me, the biggest piece that I say from a programmer perspective, and this is for anyone, having that trusted face, so having those CDC partners is valuable. It is instrumental because if I have Mrs. Jones coming to me for a roof, I can tell you there are likely some other issues. She may be having tax challenges. She may have challenges on the air side. She may have challenges from a utility perspective to where utilities may be behind. So it gives us an opportunity to not only look at the home, but it also gives us the opportunity to look at the resident as well and do a full assessment to see what other resources they may need. So I cannot stress it again, such as the partners that you have already on this call. We can't make this work without having those partners as our face. And then, of course, we have our lenders who actually serve as the loan originators and the servicers. So then this gets people to open up bank accounts. So now we can get people locked into other financial services that those lenders may provide. And then, of course, we have the trusted construction management partner. So homeowners aren't having to search out for a contractor on their own. So we've been able to really build out, like I said, really a full, robust system over the last 10 years across these markets.
Fantastic. Thank you for just sharing those broader perspectives of what LISC is doing across the country. And I wanted to pose this question to you, touched upon it a little bit, but what opportunities do you see for scaling housing preservation efforts over the next few years?
I think for me is, I'm a proponent of a national home repair fund, and people say it may be pie in the sky, but I think we do. I mean, because we need some type of national movement around home repair. I think we will see it through the whole Homes Repair Act as a start. Now the question is just how much funding will come along with that, because we have the legislation, which, I know Nicole would touch on, but we also need the funding. So it's getting creative to move beyond the federal funding that we've always used. The CDBG and home have not grown. So that's why it's going to take philanthropy, it will take, as was mentioned before, Federal Home Loan Bank. We leverage some of their programming, particularly around the NIP funds. We have homeowners that leverage those. So it's really figuring out creative ways to unlock not just grants. Like I tell people this all the time. There's only a finite amount of people that you can really get to with grants. You still need some sort of financing program. So we need a mixture, as we've been able to do here at LISC. We need to be able to finance those who could be financed. For those who cannot be financed, then we provide grants or we provide some other support. But like I said, it's really going to be able, it's going to take us thinking creatively beyond just the public resources that we have, because those resources are limited.
Hmm. Yeah, giving us a lot to ponder on. Thank you for those nuggets of information. Very
You're
insightful.
welcome.
Thank you, Damon. All right, so we've spent the first portion of today's webinar looking at what home repair programs look like in practice. And moving forward, we're going to shift our attention to the federal landscape and examine some policy developments that may create new opportunities or new challenges for rural communities with Nicole. So, before I want to share my screen again, but before I do, just a little tidbit on Nicole. She serves as our Senior Director of Policy for for LISC National, and has been closely following federal housing legislation appropriations and emerging opportunities related to housing preservation. So she'll help us understand what's happening here in Washington, where where I am, and what organizations should be paying attention to moving forward. So, Nicole, over to you, and I will reshare my slides. Just give me one moment here.
No problem. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
And thank you for having me. I think most of you all know my colleague, Mark Kudlowitz, who actually manages our housing portfolio. Unfortunately, he's unable to be with you today. So I'll be playing the role of Mark and hopefully channeling some really good information and some positive developments at the federal level, sharing them your way. You can go to the next slide. So a few things that we will, this presentation will do really briefly. I'll give you a brief snapshot of the current budget and appropriations landscapes to just give you a sense of what Congress and the administration are thinking about in terms of its priorities for moving things forward. And then we'll do a quick overview of the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. Not in depth. In this presentation, there's going to be a plug for an external webinar that LISC is actually presenting in the coming weeks. And I would encourage anyone that wants deeper information on road to actually attend the webinar or, somehow get the recording from it, because that will be illustrative of, what's going on. And then we'll delve into a little bit of the Whole Homes Repair Act provision that is tucked inside of roads that Damon alluded to. And we'll end with just a little brief overview of a new tax credit proposal that some of you guys might be familiar with called the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. Next slide. So the fiscal year 2027 funding landscape is still being negotiated. While the president's April 4th budget proposed significant reductions to a lot of different discretionary programs, implementing those cuts is going to be challenging and has been challenging given the narrow House majority and the Senate 60 vote requirement in order to pass anything fully through the Senate. So in the near term, Congress is really hyper-focused on avoiding a shutdown. And one of the ways that they're doing that is through a proposed continuing resolution that originated in the House of Representatives. And so that process and the potential continuing resolution is still being negotiated, and that opens itself to continued opportunities for potentially community project funding. Those are the earmarks and congressionally directed spending projects that would be included in whatever funding package probably moves. Notably, there'll be some restrictions around actual total spending for the bill and some other kind of restrictions related to nonprofits receiving earmarks or community project funding or congressionally directed spending, depending on which body you're in the House. So all in all, if you've been following the federal landscape, none of this is really surprising. We haven't really kind of conducted regular order for a lot of our spending priorities. I can say if you're looking for hopeful aspects, the bills are actually moving through committee and being considered, which is a positive thing. So people have kind of an eye for or can get a sense of what Congress might be prioritizing. Next slide. This is like the biggest news, I think, in quite some time in the housing and community development space. So in late June, Congress passed the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and it advanced with overwhelming bipartisan support and passed both chambers by wide margins after months of negotiations. Now, the final compromise bill became law in July, actually on July 11th, and it makes it a significant housing policy milestone, despite not receiving the president's signature. Next slide. A little bit more information on road before we dive into the Whole Home Repairs Act provision that was in it. So one of the reasons it's considered the most significant federal housing legislation in years is because it aims to increase housing supply, improve affordability, expand access to home ownership, and modernize federal housing programs on a discretionary funding side. We've seen a lot of movement in affordable housing on the tax and revenue side of the house, but not a lot on the discretionary funding and programmatic side. So that's what made road very significant. The law also seeks to reduce some barriers to new housing development and create financing tools for affordable and small dollar mortgages. There's provisions that limit large institutional investors' ability to purchase existing single-family homes, attempting to help more families compete in the housing market. And so it's a huge piece of legislation that combined nearly 60 standalone bills to address myriad issues in the housing and community development space. Again, on additional slides, you'll see a link to, and I'm sure that you'll receive the information through the Rural LISC listserv, but there will be a standalone webinar on the Road to Housing Act that if you'd like additional information about some of the provisions, I encourage you to attend. So for the purpose of this particular audience, we can talk a little bit about one of the major wins, we would say, in the Road to Housing Act, which was the Whole Home Repair Act. Next slide, please. So what is the actual provision? And so basically, this should look familiar to many of you. The legislation was modeled after a really successful bipartisan state level program in the state of Pennsylvania. And it basically authorizes a HUD administered home repair grant. Basically, low-income homeowners with 80% or less of area median income and small landlords of less than 25 units, with a majority of affordable units are eligible for resources. It has provisions like capping rent increases at the lesser of 5% of the base rate or at the rate of inflation for at least 3 years after the completion of repairs. The eligible entities for the grants are states and local governments. Nonprofits can actually apply for grants with a state or local government. So there's a provision in there that has nonprofit eligibility, but it requires a partnership. The allowable uses of funds are accessibility improvements, health and safety requirement improvements, energy and water efficiency, resilience, weatherization, myriad of things that are helping to improve the quality of homes. Homeowners would receive assistance in the form of a grant or a loan, which could be forgiven for landlords. And then 5% of the funding could be used for workforce development training related to home repairs. And so the authorization for this new program terminates or ends. So it runs through the point of passage, which is this past June through October 1st, 2031. One of the key notable instances, I think Damon alluded to this, is that while it was a huge win to have the Whole Home Repairs Act included in the Road to Housing package, one of the things that was not included was an actual funding outlay. So we have the authorization for the program, and now there will need to be advocacy and a concerted effort to get appropriations annually for the program in order for it to actually have teeth and put dollars out of the door. Next slide. So the timing for implementation of all of the Road to Housing Bill Act, including the Home Repair Act, is going to be varied. One of the things that happens, and I'm quite sure you guys are familiar with this, is after legislation passes, there's a whole regulatory process by which the agency responsible for administering the program has to promulgate rules and specific guidelines that talk about how dollars are allocated, the technical aspects of moving money from agency to eligible entities, and refining some of the details that may not be explicitly stated in the underlying legislation. So some of the next steps for implementation of this will include ensuring that the administering agencies basically adopt rulemaking that establishes the most efficient and effective programs to put resources in the hands of folks on the ground who need them the most. LISC, Mark, and others, and hopefully partnering with you all, will be working with Congress to allocate funding for programs sufficiently. That's going to be an annual process that we go through to ensure that dollars are actually attached to the authorized language for the program. And we'll continue the push to keep Congress investing in the programs that serve communities with really high need. And again, our webinar for the Road to Housing Act will take place on August 6th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I encourage you to attend. Next slide. The other interesting thing that's occurring that may be of interest for entities that are interested in home repair is the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. NHIA is a bipartisan proposal and is really designed to expand homeownership and revitalize distressed communities by creating a new federal tax credit that helps close the gap between the cost of building or rehabilitating a home and its market value. So this new legislation would encourage investment in underserved neighborhoods in order to increase the supply of affordable homes and support wealth building opportunities for low to moderate income families. So in communities where the cost of substantially renovating a home outpaces the appraisal value, the tax credit would cover up to 40% of building a new home for sale to families, making up to 140% of AMI, and up to 50% of the cost for rehabilitating owner-occupied homes for families, making at or below 100% of area median income. Next slide. Here's an example of how potentially an owner-occupied rehabilitation could work. I'm not going to read through this, and you guys can kind of absorb this and read through it on your own. But one of the takeaways that the head of our department, Matt Joseph, who's actually been the champion for this tax provision on behalf of LISC specifically, wanted to relay is that NHIA has a real potential to positively impact rural communities because of the owner-occupied homes provision in particular, right? So it's a newish tool that is not just for like development coming online, which is important, but also for individuals that are already in homes and own their homes and need a credit to meet that appraisal gap. Another reasons why we believe it's an important tool is that states are given the flexibility to direct credits to communities with housing needs, including rural areas that may not meet every federal distress metric, but still face disinvestment and housing shortage. So there is kind of an ability of states to kind of direct resources to high areas in rural communities of high need. And again, we know that the appraisal gap can be common in rural markets where the cost of building or substantially rehabilitating a home exceeds its market value. And we know that that makes development financially unfeasible without assistance. And so by supporting rehabilitation and new construction, we think that NHIA aims to stabilize rural housing stock, expand homeownership opportunity, and attract private investment in areas that have been traditionally underserved. Last slide. One of the things that Mark asked me to really outline for you is that we really do value rural LISC's partnership and the partner organizations that are in the rural LISC network. We want to give a shout out to a rural LISC partner who is really important in actually helping to get a Republican sponsor on the Whole Home Repair Act. So a Representative Downing from Montana being a supporter of the act and backing the legislation was a direct result of a rural LISC partner leaning in and talking about the value of the provision. And so while we have a long way to go to allocate resources to address some of the great things that have shown up in the Road to Housing Act, specifically the Whole Home Repair Act, we believe that we've gotten this far with your partnership, and we look forward to partnering with you further to make sure that those resources actually make their way to the ground.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. And that's I'm glad you mentioned that towards the end because it's one question I just wanted to pose to you for our participants, different developers and organizations on the line right now. How can local organizations help elevate housing needs to policymakers, whether at the local or state level or national?
Absolutely. So your voices with the specific context for your local communities, that storytelling connected to data is essential to securing resources and moving things forward. We as federal policy liaisons are only as successful as the communities that we are able to uphold. So I would say if we're looking for very specific examples that you guys may have some history with, like the Section 4 capacity building program at HUD and the Rural Community Development Initiative, all of that advocacy for capacity building resources and for direct dollars going into entities, into local communities, is really meaningful because it's what moves members to adopt strategies that work. I would also say that it has become significantly harder for under-resourced organizations to apply for and manage federal funding, juggling a lot of issues on the ground. And it's even, that's one of the reasons why your partnership is even more important and more valued. And it's why we push for some more of those capacity building resources to ensure that those dollars that we advocate for programmatically actually make it into the hands of organizations and entities that can apply them in the ways that meet community need. So it's a little bit of squirrely. I'm sorry, Moriah, it's like a squirrely answer a little bit, but I think there's a range of partnership opportunities that, depending on your local community, that storytelling and the direct connection to federal programming becomes very important.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. It's really important to consider in terms of leaning into. And I'd just like to pose to our other panelists, since we're almost at the hour, if you have any last minute remarks or things to walk away with that you would like our participants to consider. Okay. Oh, Damon.
I think for me, the last thing I'll just stress on is it's the value of partnerships. We can do more together, particularly from a service perspective, and a monetary perspective. When we look at how we pool funds, how we look at assessments in terms of clients, because we know Mrs. Jones is likely going in your community, she's likely going to 5 different sources. So as easy as we can make the experiences for the homeowner up front, that support, that shows the power of, collaboration and partnership.
Thanks, Damon. Awesome. Well, we covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from local implementation strategies to funding models to national housing trends and federal policy developments. And as we wrap, I just would like to again thank our panelists, Amy Bowen, Josh Runhaar, Damon Thompson, and Nicole Barcliffe for sharing their expertise and insights today. And I also want to thank all of you for joining us and the work that you're doing in your communities. So today's discussion, it reinforced something that we all know. Home repair programs are not simply about buildings and repairs. They're about people, families' dignity, and community stabilization and opportunity. We hope today's conversation provided practical insights and ideas, new resources, and inspiration that you can bring back to your own work. Thank you for spending the part of your afternoon with us. And this webinar should be available very soon on our Rural LISC website and YouTube page. So till our next webinar, please look out for it in the fall. And we hope that you continue to join us on our Raising the Roof series. Have a great day. Thank you all. Bye-bye.